Hello, everyone, and thank you for standing by here. I had a little bit of problem. I guess the gods just didn't want me to do this live video, and so there were a couple technical issues. And I'm going to actually, as you can see, I actually have a camera down on the side here for you guys because I'm going to try to actually do a side view of certain things so you could see things a little bit better, so I don't have to keep on going up and down on the uh, on the video. But I'm Paul, and welcome to your Legion, everyone. And today, or we'll be taking a look at the Intel NUC. We have two NUCs here. We have a Core i7, which is the larger one. We have a Core i5, which is the smaller one. Both of them do come either in the smaller profile or the larger profile. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what both were. The Core i7 is the 5557U, and the Core i5 is the 5250U. The 5250U has a 1.6 gigahertz processor with a boost of 2.4. The Core i7 has a 3 gigahertz processor with a boost of 3.4. They're both dual core processors. They both are a 14 nanometer process, and they both have turbo boost and hyper threading. So you're going to get the turbo boost, and you're going to get those extra threads. So it's going to act like a 4-core. So you're getting those 2 virtual threads on each one of them. So TDPs on both of these. This one is 28, and this one has a base of 9, believe it or not. So that's pretty good, but it does boost up to about 23. What are the differences between these? Basically, it's the processor. The motherboards are both the Rock Canyon motherboards in both of them. So you're getting the same motherboard. One good thing about the NUC is, depending on the size that you get, you could either, with this one, you're going to be using M.2s only. But with the larger one, you not only have the use of the M.2, you actually have the use of an extra SATA 2.5. So since I have this open, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the motherboard there. All right, as you can see on the bottom here, we have our SATA port. We have our M.2. These are our 2 memory modules. Of course, this would be the SATA cable, the extra SATA plug that is going into this 2.5 inch. I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. All right, and then we'll take a look at what outside connections it actually has. Now, both of them are, as I said, both of them are the same. So you're going to get one USB 3.0 and then a USB 3.0 charging point. That's why it's yellow, because you could use it as a rapid charger. This is also a 3.5 millimeter jack for a headset. On the back of it, we have the power cable. Now, one thing good about this is past NUCs didn't come with a power cable. These do. They also come with a VESA plate in them, which is another good point, another good quality about them. You can mount them on the back of your monitor or the back of your TV if you don't have your TV mounted, so you could hide them. DisplayPort, which will render up to 4K now. Yes, both of these can do 4K resolutions. We have our wired LAN, our two more USB 3.0 ports, and then, of course, an HDMI. And as I said, the other one is exactly the same. So as you can see, there's your front, and there's your back. Now, most of you have probably seen or read about the recent launch of Intel NVMe. They were one of the first to come out with a PCI X4 NVMe on a card, in a sense, or a 2.5 inch drive. But Samsung's actually came out with an NVMe, and it's a M.2, which I have in here. In this one, I have a Samsung 941, which is a PCI Express. So both of these are actually capable of doing NVMe. They were actually, I think, the first motherboards to be capable of doing it. Yes, I know it's on a NUC, it's on a small platform and everything, but they were actually the first ones that were capable of handling the NVMe. The BIOS were updated on both of these, and they can handle NVMe. So what can you use these for? Well, I don't use an HTPC anymore. I use a NUC. I've been using a NUC probably for the last, let's say 3 generations. I guess since the 3000 series of processors, which is basically Ivy Bridge. So we went to Ivy Bridge. I went to Haswell, and then of course now I'm using the Broadwell. Why do I use the NUC instead of an HTPC? Because I used to put a $3,000 setup and use it as an HTPC, and I was probably only using maybe $500 worth of it. Never really stored any of my my movies on it, because everything now recently in the last 2 or 3 years I've been able to store on the cloud, whether it be Cinema Now, Ultraviolet, Marvel, you name it, you could store it up on the cloud. So all my movies I have on the cloud. I don't have to worry about keeping them on a hard drive. If I do want to put them on there, yes, I can put them on there. What do I also do? What do I also do with this? I take it with me wherever I want to go. I don't normally mount it on the back of my television. I mount it down below so you can't see it. I'll take it off. If I want to go to my mom's house, if I want to do something and I know I need a computer that I want to use, that's what I bring with me. So it's very portable. I can stick it in my pocket if I want to. Some people could probably put it other places, but it's very versatile. A lot of people usually think that these are for digital signage, and I'll tell you the truth. Years ago, when I did a little work for a company on the side, what did I use? I used the original NUCs for digital signage. I used to go to like Checkers and a few other places that use, for their menus. And I actually go to the restaurants and actually install these and update the software and do stuff like that. So yes, most people think that they're for digital signage, but these are powerful mini PCs that you could actually use to replace a desktop. I mean, if you're using a desktop and you're just basically using onboard graphics, why do you need all the other stuff? All you got to do is just get this little 4x4 and you're there. That's it. So what's the differences? Well, of course, the processors. But let's go ahead and look at some numbers now. If we look at the ATA64 memory, now when I first got this one, Intel spec was only 1600 megahertz on the memory. When I got the Core i7, even though the specs do say 1600, I was told that I could actually use 1866. So this one I actually used 1866 in. Now there's the same motherboard, so I'm assuming that you can use it with the Core i5 also if you choose. But as I said, I reviewed this one probably 3 months ago, and I recently got the Core i7 because the Core i7 has just come out a little while ago. So I went with 1866. Now you can see the numbers here. Look at the read speeds, which are in the light blue. Your write speeds are in the light gray. Your dark blue are your copy speeds, and your latencies are your dark grays. So we have lower latencies, of course, because of the memory. We have copy speeds, which are, of course, higher because of the memory, and so on. Going to Cinebench. Now this is where we're actually looking at the processors themselves. The Core i5, 261, and the Core i7 got 355 as a total overall CPU score. And then let's look at the OpenGL. The OpenGL, look at the difference, because the Core i7 now uses Intel Iris graphics. Now, the Intel Iris graphics, I guess you could say, and I will say, really do compete with the Radeon graphics of the APUs that you find on the AMD end. The graphics are actually a lot nicer. They're a lot crisper. They look better they actually look better when you're watching a movie or you're playing a game. It's a total different, not to put the regular HD graphics down, but it's like you're in a total different atmosphere when you're actually looking at the Iris graphics, and of course they're more powerful. So now we've got 32 frames a second, and then we have 41.7. Not bad. Our next benchmark is PC Mark 8, and this is the home suite, and these are the overall scores. Now, you'll notice that I actually ran the Core i5 with 2 SSDs. And yes, the reason why I did that is because at the time that I did the Core i5, I actually had 2 SSDs. I had an M.2 SSD, which was the PCI version, and I had an M.2 SATA version. So with the Intel 530 SATA, we got 2378. With the Samsung SSD, which was a PCIe, and that was the 941. This is the one that came before the 951, which is now NVMe. We got 2509. And then as we move on to the Core i7 with the NVMe SSD, the 951, we got 2857. So you could see the Core i7 is giving you pretty close to maybe a Core i5, say, total desktop scenario for you enthusiasts out there. All right, LST. I did LAN speed test on both of these. They both have Intel LAN on them. I ran them three ways till Sunday, and I just averaged out the numbers for both of them, and that's what we have. I mean, you're getting 821 on the read for the LAN, and and on the right you're getting 613. Now, this is all dual band wireless AC both. So we got 109.7, and then we got 73.9. As we went up to the 5 gigahertz, we got 478.2 on the read and 229.9. Now, I will tell you, I do have an ASUS router. I do have a 3x3. And unfortunately, I do have FiOS. So those 5G and 2G numbers are a little bit low for that router, but it only has a 1 kilobyte NAT on the FiOS router itself that I had to basically go WAN from the ASUS router to the LAN on the FiOS router. So that's why the numbers are that low. I've actually taken this to a friend's house who has a Bright House. That's what's down here at cable, and I've actually gotten up to about 800 on the 5G with that router. So yeah, I might have 300 over 300 because I have FiOS, my up and download speeds. But when it comes to the router, it's crap. So that's the reason why those are so low. As we go down the crystal disk mark, now we start to see the difference in what NVMe, PCIe, and SATA are. SATA, of course, 600 megabits per second. That's what you're going to get. So that's your max. So let's look at the 530 series, where we got a 433 on the read. Then we go up to the Samsung 941, where we got a 988, and then of course the NVMe 1531. The writes weren't much different there. I mean, they were still a lot higher. I mean, look at that write speed of 1241 on that NVMe. I mean, that it's incredible because it actually uses the 64K. It queues everything correctly, and it is made perfectly for the enthusiast or someone who really wants that throughput. Of course, NVMe now, most of the time, you're probably going to see it in more of a work area situation, enterprise. It's not very common in client, but there are client versions coming out, as you saw, which Intel just launched one. When we go to the general purpose computing with Sandra, we just did the GP here, the GP suite, and of course, this is just processing an aggregate megapixels per second, and as you can see, higher is better. So we go 160.54 to 184.94. Bandwidth, you got 8.21 to 10.77, and of course latencies. With the latencies, you got 219.9 and 194.2, and latency actually lower is better on the latency, of course. Going over to our Winrar. Now, of course, if you use Winrar, it does have its own benchmark in it. So, and it's basically a multi-threaded benchmark, and it does multi-threading for storage on your PC. So we got 3777 on the Core i5, and then we got 4298. Now below, what you're going to see is an extraction and a compression benchmark. So the very middle number will be our extraction numbers. We got 43 seconds on a 1 gigabyte file on the extraction for the Core i7, and 50 seconds on the Core i5. Compression on the Core i7, we had 42 seconds with that same gigabyte file, and we had 58 seconds on the Core i5. So you can see the Core i7 has a little bit more oomph. We've got better processing power. We've got a little bit more of a turbo boost. So of course, you're going to get the better numbers when it comes to that. Next thing that we have here is our file transfer, and that's actually the same 1 gigabyte file. I'm sorry I put 5 gigs up there, but when you look at the Core i7 compared to the Core i5, we have 1 minute and 51 seconds. Now this is bringing the 1 gigabyte file on the onboard SSD to a USB 3 Patriot Magnum USB 3 drive, which has a read and write speeds of roughly 375 to 400. So same drive, same everything. 151 to 146. Now that's not that much, but when you're talking 3 or 4 seconds, that does mean a lot, when we're comparing these numbers. And then of course, from the USB back to the SSD, we got 28 seconds on the Core i7 and 31 seconds on the Core i5. Let's go ahead and look at 3D Mark. Now, I ran both of them with Skydiver. As you can see, we do have a pretty big difference here. The bottom number is this total score, and that on the Core i5 with the HD graphics, 6000 graphics, we got 3758. On the Core i7 with the Iris graphics, we got 4054. One thing I also did was I wanted to see if I could actually run Firestrike and finally get over 1,000 on an onboard GPU. So I ran Firestrike, and yes, this is probably the first one that I could actually say scored over 1,000 with an onboard GPU. We got 1146 on Firestrike, and that's running it at 1080p. Let's go ahead to our next one, which is our games. We actually ran 3 games, well, 2 games and Unigine. So Unigine Heaven, we ran at low, moderate, actually moderate, low tessellation, and no AA. We got 17.2 frames a second, and then we got 21.9 frames a second with the Iris chip. So nice little bump there. You're not going to see a big difference when it comes when you're talking about Unigine. But now, if we look at Gabriel Knight, which is kind of like, I guess you could kind of call it an indie game. I don't know. Years ago, it was one of those games that I loved to play, but they had a 20th anniversary edition. They upgraded the graphics. I ran that it was called Fast. Weird settings. It's fastest, fast, good, better, and superb. So I ran it at fast. I ran both of them at fast. So we got 46 frames per second with the i5, but we got 59.3, and now that's a nice bump. So as you can see, the Iris chip at 19 by 10 is getting better performance, and you're going to get actual playable frames. Now we go to Borderlands. Borderlands, basically, I let it default to whatever it was, and basically it was low or medium settings. So as you can see, 22 frames per second on the i5. That's really not playable, anyone. So not too good. And then we had 31.6. That is obviously playable. So you can actually play some decent AAA games. Of course, you're not going to be able to crank up the eye candy, but you could actually play some AAA games with the Core i7. I do have one more slide that I want to bring up, and I'm sorry that I don't. Let me go ahead and see if I could add that real quick. I wanted to show you what the NUCs are also good for is video editing. Just say you don't want to take up the time on your main rig and you want something else to do it, you could definitely do it on your NUC. And I do have an image here that I wanted to bring up. Where is it? I'm on my desktop. Ah, here it is. No, that's not it. Here we go. All right. Cyberlink Media Espresso. Of course, this is transcoding. What I did was I took the same video, and you could actually, if you don't believe me, you could go to our YouTube channel, look for the CES Gigabyte motherboard and Thunderbolt video, which is 6 minutes and 8 seconds. That's the actual video that I used to transcode. And now we can see some big differences here. Transcoding it without QuickSync. Now, of course, Intel, famous for their QuickSync, correct? Well, without QuickSync, no hardware, no hardware acceleration. The Core i5, 74 seconds, and the Core i7, 55. But now with QuickSync, now you can see where the Core i7 kind of crushes this. And it's roughly, a lot better. Now, Intel is saying you're going to get about a 20 to 25% increase with the Core i7 and Iris and QuickSync. I say you're probably going to get about 45 to 50% because we got 21 seconds with QuickSync on the Core i5, and it only took 10 seconds to transcode the same one with the Core i7. All right, everyone. I want to say thank you very much for watching this live review. Unfortunately, I can't see the comments. I will try to answer some comments later after the video is published. But I want to say thank you for watching. And remember, the reason why I'm actually doing this is because we might have heard rumors that Broadwell was coming for the desktop, but I did want to show you guys something that is a great alternative to maybe a second PC in your house or an HTPC that you could actually use. And you can use NVMe on both of these with M.2s. So there's another plus if you're really looking for the smashing, the smashing performance SSD wise. Stay thirsty, my friends. I appreciate your time this evening. I'm very sorry about yesterday. We had some family issues, and I'm very sorry about this evening that I guess the system crashed on me. I have no clue. All of a sudden it just sounded like this loud music was playing, and bam, everything went out. So thank you for waiting by. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, the next time I do a live review, it'll probably go a little bit better because I won't be as frustrated, and I'll be a little bit more calm, and it'll go right. Bye-bye.